I like that. Ruth Jordan Holdoff was the Winona Police Department's first policewoman. She served from December 9th, 1959 to April 1, 1962. And she has a very special 80th birthday coming up, and I understand she's here. Okay. Ruth, would you want to come to the podium? And the police chief and I would like to give you a certificate. Here you go. In recognition of your birthday, all the citizens would like to say thank you for breaking the glass ceiling on Winona.
Right, that's all I did. I just took a job. Evidently, or somebody decided that the department couldn't function with 41 men without a woman because they locked up women and dealt with children. It was wise, and I loved my job. But eventually I liked him better.
Explain your son.
My spouse. It was a different day then. It was.
Well, thank you for your service and for
You're
everything.
welcome.
It's a real pleasure to meet you.
And
I think
Officer
that
Jordan is going to now be leaving the building with all of her family.
the police chief has a little something for you.
Small token and an early birthday present.
Oh,
on behalf
thank
of the
you.
department. Thank you for your service, Beth.
Thank you, but you know, we all got we all got addicted to caffeine up in the control room.
I do too.
Get on to your own business.
Thank you. City manager, do you have anything?
I just have one thing I want to remind everyone that next Monday, November 9th at 6:30 PM at the East End Rec Center will be a meeting on the East End Overpass project. So everyone's welcome to attend.
Okay, thank you. Roll call?
Mayor Peterson,
Here?
Councilman Thurley,
Here.
Craig,
Here.
Alexander. Here. Iden. Here. Borzakowski.
Here.
Double.
Here.
Under the required public hearings, the first item, 2.1, is the Peltzer Properties rezoning from R3 to B2.
Here's a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open and ask Carlos if you'd like to say a few words.
Evening, Mayor and Council. For this item here tonight, Pelzer Properties is requesting rezoning from R3 multiple family zoning to B2 business zoning at 1845 West 5th Street. That's the property that was formerly the Red Top Mobile Home Park. The mobile home park closed in June of this year, and now the request is to rezone the property, a majority of the property, from R3 to B2. West 5th Street borders the property on the north and northeast, and Pelzer Street borders the property on the south and southeast. The majority of the property in question is currently zoned R3. A portion of it is zoned B2. That portion that was zoned B2 was zoned from R3 to B2 in 1983 to facilitate the development of storage units for residents of the park. To the west of the property in question, to the northwest, is R3 multiple family zoning. Across West 5th Street to the north is R1 zoning. To the east southeast is R3 zoning, and immediately adjacent to the south is B2 zoning. That B2 zoning was applied in 1967 to facilitate development of the JCPenney department store. For this property, in 2007, Pelzer Street was widened as part of the Pelzer Street Overpass project. It increased the number of lanes on Pelzer Street from 2 to 4. As part of that project, the easternmost row of trailer homes was removed at that point in time, also resulting in the current eastern boundary of the property. On October 12th, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request, and the findings were as follows. First of all, there was no error or oversight in application of the R3 zoning. The use of the property has changed, and Pelzer Street has been widened since application of the R3 zoning in 1959 and 1960 to warrant rezoning of the property in question. Potential uses of the requested B2 zone would not impose undue hardship on surrounding properties. In addition to the petitioner, the proposed rezoning benefits the city because it facilitates redevelopment in an appropriate area as designated by the comprehensive plan. And finally, spot zoning is not evident. In consideration of the request tonight, the following options are available to council. You could decide to approve the B zoning request as submitted. Under this option, a motion to adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and introduce the ordinance that's attached to your council packets would be in order. Note that per state statute, a supermajority of 5 votes is required for approval. Council could also deny the rezoning request, modify the request, or table the item. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Carlos? Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Anybody else here want to speak to this issue? One final chance if you want to speak to this issue. If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed and ask if there's any motion from
Mayor, I would
council.
move to grant this request to rezone R3 to B2.
Second.
Motion by Al and seconded by Michelle. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Item 2.2 is the municipal consent for Highway 61 Gilmore Avenue.
Okay, it's another public hearing. I declare the public hearing open. And that's it. Then that, start the conversation here. I should note that we had an hour-long pre-council meeting on this topic too. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Mr. Mayor and council members, Dave Nelson from SRF Consulting Group. I'm here representing MnDOT. Just like to give everyone a real brief overview of the project. What we're doing here is consolidating Gilmore Avenue, the Gilmore Avenue intersection here, and the one we're calling No Name over here, and consolidating it into one intersection. Really, the goals of the project are to reduce severe crashes and improve safety. Another goal is to improve.
Oh, would you speak into the microphone, please?
The people out in TV land want to hear what you have to say.
Turn this on.
Again, the goals of the project are to increase safety. That's job number one. And as if most of you noticed, there's a couple of old signal systems sitting out there ready to fall over. We're dealing with that as well with this project. Another goal that we have is to improve traffic operations on Highway 61. And then finally, we are improving pedestrian and bicycle access across 61. Right now, it's very difficult for folks to cross the highway either on foot or on a bicycle. We are also, stand this way, reducing the crossing movement at Orange Street and Gilmore, and it's called a reduced conflict intersection, whereby we're eliminating the crossing movement and directing drivers to take a right out on Highway 61 and then use the next available left turn lane to do a U-turn. Studies have shown that up to 85% of severe right angle crashes are prevented by a similar type of design. And the other thing that you'll notice is we're proposing a mini roundabout here along Gilmore Avenue. What that does, again, it improves pedestrian and bicycle movements through the area. It also provides access for semi-tractor trailer rigs. We looked at different types of intersections there, and this was the only one that really did a good job with allowing trucks to continue to use that part of the road. We anticipate this project taking about one construction season to construct, probably May to October. And during construction, at least one lane of traffic will be open on Highway 61 at all times. We do anticipate other miscellaneous lane closures, and Gilmore Avenue between Subway and Taco Bell will need to be closed for a limited amount of time to both construct the roundabout and the approaching roadway there. That's all I really had prepared. Are there any specific questions or that I can try to answer?
I think most of our questions were asked earlier, so unless there are any.
I just have a quick question. We've seen some construction activity. It would be on the north side of Gilmore Avenue, where the motel was and where the old Happy Chef was. How does this construction plan take into account the new store and facility that would be built there? And how about access to the, the restaurants that are there, the Subway and Taco Bell?
Access to the restaurants won't change.
Okay.
When Gilmore is closed down, there'll be a detour set up or alternate route set up. As far as access to the old Goodwill site here, they do have an access off of Junction over here that remain open. And then I believe they have two driveways, one right here and one over there.
Mm-hmm.
During construction, one of those access points will be open, but not
Okay.
both.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you. Anybody else here wish to speak?
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Kyle Lake. I'm a project manager with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and I've been working on this project, and I think it was probably more than 18 months ago when I came to you with a concept that simply replaced the signals on Highway 71 and made some adjustments to some turn lanes and some safety features at Oren. And at that time, that project met with some pretty large resistance by many people in this room. We have since worked with the city, worked with the community, the business members, the chamber, and we, I believe, have come up with a product here that does an excellent job of taking in safety, considering operations, considering pedestrian movements, and balancing all the constraints that have been presented as a part of this, this tricky area. And I feel that MnDOT really has, in this case, put forth their best effort, and I look forward to building this project next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here wish to speak to this issue?
Paul Schromeyer, 480 West Burns Valley Road in Winona. Unfortunately, we're unable to see the design plans in the audience here. So I would ask that the planners, my concern is pedestrian and bicycle transport across the highway. So if they could come up and for the viewing audience and for those of us in the seats, explain how the pedestrians and bicycles will be able to get across Highway 61, so we can add some words to the visual here. Thank you.
Okay, good point. You're going to have to use the microphone, though. Can
You
that
can
be
take the-
taken off the mic stand?
Yeah, you can
Maybe
pull that mic right
hold
off.
it in your hand. There you go.
So regarding pedestrian and bicycle routes, we've got a trail on this side of No Name, on that side of No Name. You can see we've got a crosswalk here, and then we've got a crosswalk there. So if you're coming down Gilmore Avenue in front of Cotter, you would continue here, make your crosswalk movement there, and then come down here and then cross at the traffic signal. And then right over here is about where that bus stop is. You're welcome.
Anybody else wish to speak? Is there anybody else here?
Good evening, council members. My name is David Wirtz. I live out in Wee Valley. Originally lived on Gilmore for 30 years of my 50-plus life lives. And as I look at this project, it looks good on paper, but I'm wondering, between the new Gilmore and No Name Street, what is that exact distance? Because what I see, when you turn off of Gilmore to get on the highway, turn back onto Gilmore again, you're turning onto the turn lane that turns off of 61. So you gotta go across 4 lanes of traffic just to make another left-hand turn, to make another right-hand turn. Right? And most of you probably don't know, and especially you, this is your area of district, but nobody's bothered to talk to people who live out there. Nobody's bothered to come out on Gilmore or Sunset or Edgewood. That area is mostly 65-year-old people and older. My parents are in their upper 80s. And you expect them to try to cross that intersection? That's a death trap. What I see what should have been done is that intersection should have been brought down to Junction Street and brought straight down into 61. Because that's the truck route, is Junction Street. So bring that straight down onto 61. It's further down. Keep the lights at 61. Put the new lights at the Junction Street intersection and keep Orin the way they have it planned now. To me, that makes more sense. And when you, like I said, when you had the council meeting back in September, 2 days notice to the public. That's ridiculous. That's like bowing to MnDOT's. I wanted to come to that meeting. I couldn't because I had a prior engagement. So I kept on waiting to see if there would be another one in October. Now you're going to vote on it. That's not fair to the public, especially the people who live out there, because they're all older people. And they're trying, I've already told my parents to avoid Hy-Vee with passion. I told them, if you want to go shopping, you go down to Midtown by going the other way. Because this is going to be a mess for them. And at their age, I don't want them driving over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Mayor
You
and
want to
City
pull the
Council.
mic down?
Mayor and City Council, I'm Leon Malszewski, as you're probably aware, and I've worked on the Highway 61 Task Force 22 years ago. And it lasted about 2 years, and we evaluated a lot of things. The task force was extremely concerned about the speed on the highway and relationship to traffic flow and access across the highway. We came up with a plan that obviously some people didn't like and other people did like, but we were able to come to some compromises, and at that time the city apparently felt that it was too expensive because of the frontage roads being primarily their cost, and they did not move forward at that time and with that plan. It was a much more comprehensive plan than what is being proposed today. I feel that MnDOT has done a very diligent, hardworking job over the years in trying to find a solution for this very complicated area. So I commend them for their efforts. However, there are some sticky points, you might say, to this current plan. And I feel that the city has been somewhat, well, I guess it's very uncomplimentary to say, negligent, but the city has never hired their own independent engineering firm to represent the city's interest in finding out internal congestion, internal traffic flow within the city, their truck routes, their access points, and work with MnDOT diligently to represent some of our personal city concerns. I know that the chamber has tried independently, but that excludes the general public. And I think that the general public deserves to have an engineering firm hired by the city to evaluate the entire process throughout this area and how it impacts, for example, Edgewood and Sunset Edition, because traffic is going to be increasing in that area to avoid some of this to go out to Highway 14. And so we're going to be impacting the frontage roads and internal traffic from Edgewood, let's say, through Sunset and so forth. That has not been evaluated because we have hired MnDOT to look at the highway and access points off the highway for the city. So we need to think about what the city might need. So my recommendation is that we really evaluate a little bit more about the impact to the neighboring community as well as to the business community. And pre-council, we heard about some concerns for Hy-Vee and some of the traffic, particularly on the south side, but that does not exclude some of the traffic on the north side. I didn't get an opportunity to finish explaining some of that. It's a little technical, so I won't do that at this time. But I guess my recommendation to the city tonight is that you seriously consider tabling this, not making a decision up or down, and hiring an engineering firm to evaluate this plan from the city's perspective, and also that engineering firm could work with MnDOT. MnDOT has hired their own engineering firm, but we have failed to hire ours. So I won't go into any further detail unless you have some specific questions for me.
Guess not, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else here wish to speak to this issue?
Good evening. Phil Hoy, 2960 320th Street West, Northfield, Minnesota. I'm a representative of Hy-Vee. I work in the real estate department. Our store director is also here, so if there's any store-specific questions, she'll be here to answer those. Of course, this affects her day-to-day. I do not envy MDOT and they're taking this project on. And I don't envy you being here trying to make a decision on what to do to move forward or not. This is something that has been discussed in your community for many, many years, this intersection down here, what to do about it. And a project is before you that you can vote on and move forward and improve this intersection. There are issues out here today, and they need to be solved. And this solves some of them. But is this the right plan? It's better, maybe, but is that good enough? For all this time that's been waited to get here to an improvement, is this good enough? From Hy-Vee's perspective, our concerns really come down to how this will function when it's all done. Access to the store doesn't change significantly. Ingress is about the same. Egress becomes the challenge. And basically, although our direct access onto the service drive does not change, the access that our customers would realize once they get out of that service drive changes dramatically, changes completely. There is actually no access to 61, no full access to 61 after this change goes into place. So how does that affect our customers and their shopping habits? You've already heard one gentleman say he's recommended his parents not to shop at Hy-Vee. So I think there was a three-pronged goal. We were trying to make this safer, we were trying to increase the pedestrian access, and then we were trying to improve the flow on the highway. I think that from a safety perspective, that there is some safety issues that are being taken care of with this plan. I believe there's other safety issues being created with this plan, however. Particularly, maybe if I may move this towards you. Particularly the access point, I'll call it the Culver's access point, so right there. The traffic study just generally that was done for this area used to design and run the modeling, those traffic counts were done in 2008 and 2009. Now, there was an annual increase given for those traffic count numbers for this to use in this modeling. But things have changed significantly since 2009. And is that increase that year over year that these access points were given, is that the right projection? I think we should know exactly what traffic is being realized out here today in order to actually design. I'm not sure how many millions of dollars this project is, but I'm guessing it's significant. Ordering an updated traffic study is peanuts compared to this overall design. Why wouldn't we look at updated numbers to make sure that the actual traffic counts with this design work here? So we actually hired our own traffic consultants, Westwood Consulting, an engineering firm out of Eden Prairie, Minnesota, to take a look at the traffic count numbers that were used for this design, and also ITE trip generation modeling, which is a standard used to create intersections and traffic count flow for businesses. So we looked at our business, the other businesses in this area, and we used the traffic counts that were used to design this, and we did our own modeling. And getting back to the Culver's intersection. At peak periods, what our modeling showed us was that traffic will back up at the intersection. Traffic trying to get out to 61 will back up. Not only back up in the stacking area on the service road, but also back up into the Culver's parking lot at peak periods. That there's about 4 lengths there of queuing area for vehicles to stack up. Now today, what's it like today? Today it is a nightmare. If you go shop there, you know it's who goes where and who waits where and who goes when. It's a problem, no doubt. There's going to be another problem happening here. At peak periods, it's going to be the same thing right by the Culver's. It's just, the problem has just shifted. So again, when we looked at the traffic volumes and peak periods, that does not function. As far as the other intersection, farther west for us to get out to 61, Gilmore Street. So we didn't stick when we did our modeling, we didn't take a lot of traffic and move it to the Culver's intersection. A lot of it goes out to Gilmore. So those vehicles that now want to go north onto 61 are going to have to cross 2 lanes of traffic and then wait at that light to make a U-turn. Making a U-turn into traffic that's also taking a right turn from the north heading south, heading west onto 61. So that's a potential conflict as well. At this current layout traffic count volumes, the queuing distance is about 360 feet, which is a service level of D, after this gets built out. As some of you may or may not know, we had purchased some adjacent properties. Our plan was to build a convenience store, and which is why we're not just concerned because of the food store, of course, but we were planning on building a convenience store. If you add a convenience store and the trips that a convenience store would add to this, that queuing length gets increased, and now it functions at a service level of E as vehicles cross those 2 lanes of traffic and wait to queue up to go north, make that U-turn and go north. So that is another significant concern that we have. As far as our trucks go, our trucks enter and exit our site today, and in the future, if they continue to make the same entering movement that they make today, there would not be an issue as they enter farther east, which is good because if they tried to enter this new interchange here, they wouldn't be able to do it. Because this intersection, at least for a few of those movements, is not designed for the size trucks that we drive. We drive a WB67. These movements were designed for a WB62 vehicle. So if a truck decides to turn south here and come in front of the culvers, it will drive over the median or a car that's sitting at that intersection waiting to get out onto 61. Once the truck has made its delivery and now is going to leave and go north onto 61, they'll no longer be able to come out to Gilmore like they do. They'll have to come down onto Gilmore, turn onto Orrin, and take the service drive road 3/4 of a mile down to the next interchange. Is that reasonable? It doesn't sound reasonable to me. Maybe that is reasonable. But have those turning movements been studied? I know that the turning movement down at the next interchange had been, and the WB67 can turn onto 14. But what about the turn onto Gilmore? What about the turn onto Orrin, off of Orrin to the West Service Drive? What about all of those movements? Does a WB67 work for those movements? Because if a Hy-Vee can't get deliveries, it won't stay open very long. So I guess to wrap it all up, I appreciate your time. I'm sorry for going on and on. But as you can hear, we have several significant concerns on how this will function when it's built. And based on the numbers and when those numbers were calculated, why not go back, do a traffic study, and don't just study the intersections, but study what actually happens at the West Service Drive and how vehicles come off of this site and onto the service drive and onto 61. Because without that information, you can't really design this. Having to take into account what actually happens there and what is actually experienced today. Because without knowing that'll determine what the impact is to a business like ours and whether or not we can still get our customers to and from this site and stay open. So again, I ask you to push pause. Let's get some questions answered around traffic volumes, around truck movements, to make sure this actually does work. Thank you.
George,
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
How many trucks do you get a day? Now, these 67s you're talking about, those are the 53-footers, correct?
Those are our delivery trucks, and those are 67 feet.
Okay, with the tractor, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, but how many trucks do you get a day?
I'll let Jennifer answer that question definitively, but we get quite a few trucks a day.
Sure.
And they come 24 hours?
You know, it can vary. We might have 10, 15, up to 17 trucks in a day between our trucks from our warehouse as well as different vendors. So we have quite a few deliveries.
And deliveries are made 24 hours a day?
We get some probably up until about midnight, and they start somewhere around 5 o'clock in the morning typically.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you as well, please. How many employees do you have presently?
We have 380.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
any other questions for Hy-Vee? I guess not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? This is your chance. Anybody else wish?
Ted Hazelton, I live at 1073 West Fifth Street. And I too echo the concerns of the Hy-Vee people and Leon Mashewski. I think it's it's moving too fast. We need to stop and pause, to use their words. There's so many unknowns yet. The traffic counts were done based on 2008 data. It does not reflect what's happened out there since then. Another concern is access for trucks. If you look on the map there, it did not take into consideration the new thrift store that's going to be built next to Subway there. If you look, there's no access to that at all unless they go through the Subway parking lot and then cut back across. That's one issue. But the biggest issue I have is this philosophy of encouraging people to do U-turns to get across to Orange Street. If you want to go to Orange Street, currently how it's set up is that you pull onto the highway, you have to accelerate across 2 lanes of traffic and get into a turn lane, only to turn around and do a U-turn to head the opposite way on the highway and then cross to get to the other side of Orange Street. The biggest problem with the crashes on Orange Street is not so, in my opinion, is not so much the skewed intersection. I've driven across that intersection for 30 years and I'm still here. I've never had an accident. The problem is that you just got to wait and take your time, and people are too impatient to do that. When you go into that left lane, that's where the biggest problem is, because if I'm on eastbound 61 and I want to turn left onto Orange Street to access McDonald's or Pizza Hut or Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then you got the other individual coming the opposite way, and that individual wants to go to Ultra Credit Union, you sit there and look at each other and you can't see around each other's vehicle and you're taking your chances, and that's how I believe more of the accidents happen at that intersection than simply shooting across it. I do believe that there are some problems that are addressed, but it's also creating more and more problems. I would ask that the City Council take into consideration what Leon Maszewski asked and do an independent study that represents the city. And I also believe that there should be more public involvement. This is the first I heard of any public hearing, was the article in yesterday's Winona Post. It was not advertised as a public hearing whatsoever. I just happened to come to the pre-council meeting and then heard it was going into a public hearing. That was my notice. I think many people would like to speak to this or want more information. So again, I implore the council to seriously consider tabling this until more answers are figured out, and current traffic studies not based on 2008 models. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here wish to speak to this issue? Ask again, anybody else here wish to speak to this issue? Last chance. Anybody else wish to speak? Hearing none, declare the public hearing closed, and see where the council would like to go with this.
I'd make a motion to approve the attached resolution.
I'll second that.
Motion by Michelle and seconded by Al. Further discussion?
I'll be voting against it because I think we do need to take a pause and to solicit some additional information. I'm not convinced that for the issues that are solved, there are still questions on issues that remain, and I think we need to just take some additional time to resolve those other issues.
And George, you had a question?
Yeah, Judy, they talk about engineering firms. Was our engineer not involved in this? Brian Dufresne was?
No, both the Public Works Director and the city engineer were actively involved.
They were actively
Yes.
involved. Okay. Do we care to hear anything from them, or? And I guess my main question is from hearing from people, first of all, this has been advertised, quite a bit. There's been open houses, to look at all the draft plans and all those things. And like I say, it is a tough design right here, but, is this the best interest for the community?
Mayor and council, appreciate that. The city staff, Brian and myself, as well as Judy and others, have definitely been involved in this for 15 or longer years, and it has not been a combative role between the city and the state. My understanding is the first time around there was some combativeness that came about, and I don't know the history and all that, but in working with the design firm, we've gone through the numbers and looked at the design and worked with them on it, and we're comfortable that this is the best option that's available. We've gone through unlimited. It's been a large number of options, and we feel this is a good option.
Jerry had his hand up.
I'm definitely going to vote against the motion. I do appreciate the work that everybody's been doing, but Leon was correct. This has been going on for at least 22 years. And there's never a solution that's going to satisfy everyone, but this one I think needs some work. And I don't see a real problem with waiting. And I'm not going to cut down the people from city staff that worked with MnDOT one bit, but the closer you work, if you're not an outside person working with it, I got a feeling that they ended up working together at such a close team that they ended up agreeing too much instead of really looking at it with step back and take a look at it. Again, nothing against city staff, but that's human nature. You start doing it, you start agreeing with the plans as they are. Maybe a fresh set of eyes, especially something that's going to be this expensive. It's going to be around for a very long time. And that's number one. And then number two, this really goes against, I mean, we always talk about we got to make sure it's for jobs and for a variety of other things. 380 employees, excellent employer, and this is not helping them at all. One of the plans all along was safety, first and foremost, but also we want to make sure that we do what's best for the employers, and it's flying in the face of the biggest employer out there. So for that reason and others, but those are the main reasons that I will be voting against this.
Okay, Michelle?
We've been working on this for years with the public, and I remember when MnDOT came to us with 7, I think it was, options, and this as a council is the one we picked to move forward with, to go out to the public for, to look at the plans or some variation of this. There's no way to get a good plan because we don't have enough space to put stacking capability on a frontage road. There's not enough distance the way the city lays. And for me, it's all about safety, and this is actually a road construction that causes car accidents. And I understand Hy-Vee, I understand you have to look at your interests and what's gonna be best for you long-term, but what I'm looking at here is how do I get people to your store safely and away from your store safely? And right now, I'm uncomfortable going to your store. I look for ways around these intersections. I've lived on Gilmore Avenue for 7 years, just recently moved off of it. This whole section right here is poorly designed, and I think this at least gives us an option where we're gonna get something that's gonna be navigable, safer, and yes, there's gonna be a learning curve, but there always is, and I'm in favor of it. Of course, I wish there was other things we could do to solve some of the problems people have brought forward. I don't see how we're gonna do that without taking out property to create the stacking that we've talked about, that would allow for easier on and off access on Highway 61. So I'm in favor of this. I think the staff, MnDOT, and even the public that participated have had their chance to weigh in on this over the years that we've been going through this process. And I'm not really looking to wait another 15 years in the hopes that a better plan presents itself. I want to deal with the situation we have now, because I think in another 15 years, we're going to be up for another redesign. And by then, maybe there will be another option, but for right now, I think this solves a lot of the concerns I have with Highway 61 and those intersections surrounding it.
I'd like to weigh in here just for a moment myself and say that I will support this motion, and I think it's because that intersection today is a mess. I mean, it is a disaster, and I think that the last 3 years, there's been ample opportunities for the public to learn about what the plans are. There have been open houses. I've been going to meetings for 3 years now on this, and the first design that we saw was not much of a design. It was just to put some new signals in out there. It wasn't solving the skewered intersections, and this does go a long ways to making that intersection and that whole corridor out there safer than it is now. And I think that that's of utmost importance. And I just think that it's flawed, but it sounds like it's the best that we can come up with for the budget without having the most impact, or with having the least impact on the businesses around there. So I think it's something we should support right now. And Al?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to tell you a little story, if you don't mind. I got my driver's license when I was 16, and I kind of lived in that area. And I remember going to this brand-new intersection because I was a new driver, and I wanted to figure out, okay, when I'm driving, how do I get across and through and turn and look at that? And it took me a long time, you know, as an eager 16-year-old to figure out what that intersection would mean when I did get behind the wheel. I'll also tell you, too, that when I did get behind the wheel, my personal experience in crossing Orange Street is I almost had a very serious accident because I couldn't see traffic coming from the west as I was crossing Orange Street. So for a lot of reasons, this plan seems to improve safety the most, and that's where I'm coming from. Early on, we talked about business access, and that was important, because I've been on council when this first came up, when I first came on council, I think in '89. So we've dealt with this a long time, and we've been through many different modifications, but this answers the safety question. It's not easy because, like that first intersection that was installed, it took drivers a while for traffic patterns and driving patterns to change. But as with any new construction, any new intersection, any new road, you're going to be able to figure out a roundabout. You can do that. That's not that hard. You can figure out new traffic patterns because there's going to be adequate signage. And what I like too about this is that it improves pedestrian and bicycle safety. That's something we don't have now. And I don't want to wait another minute before another accident happens and we get added to this list of one of the top 10 most dangerous places in the entire state. I want to fix it now. And we have an opportunity to do it now, to vote for it now, and to not wait another 5 or 10 years for a new plan to happen or state funding to come back, because that was an issue too. We didn't have a lot of state funding before, or we didn't have the municipal funding to support the additional state funding. So I want it to happen to now, and I'm going to support this motion.
Pam?
Yes, well, I appreciate that this plan apparently leads to an 85% reduction in serious accidents. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm really surprised that we would go ahead and continue with this plan, given the problems that we've heard about from Hy-Vee. Okay, it surprises me that we're going ahead with this without solving the access problems for Hy-Vee. I think the service road access is a problem, and the U-turn lanes to reverse direction on Highway 61 instead of turning left. I don't think that we've given enough room for people to cross 2 lanes of traffic, get into the left turn lane, and then do a U-turn. So I have some doubts about this. I have a lot of doubts about this, and I will not be voting for this plan.
Okay, Michelle?
Can I just ask MnDOT, a lot of people are saying a lot of things about how you came up with this plan. Did you not take into account truck traffic on this route? Did you not take into account how people will access these turns and the amount of space they need to do it safely? Was that not all part of the plan? I know Hy-Vee brought up that their 67-footer wouldn't make the turn, but I believe you told me in the meeting that it would. Can you just address some of those issues that people are bringing up? Because I think when you design a road, you're generally trying to design it so it's functional, correct?
Correct.
Or your money would be wasted.
Correct. Kyle Lake with MnDOT. Yeah, I will say we taken all those things into account when we're looking at a scenario like this. And we have a lot of things we have to weigh in on. I will say that, we were provided with the information that Hy-Vee uses a WB67 as their main truck. Yet tonight I heard that their trucks are 67 feet long. AASHTO standards, a WB62 is 69 feet long, which is 2 feet longer than what Hy-Vee is currently quoting that they have. This is designed with a WB62 in mind. So given the information I'm hearing tonight, I would say we more than met some of the design issues that they brought forth. That being said, in our pre-council meeting today, and maybe SRF would like to speak more on this, but I did see we've been really busy with a lot of things, and that's not an excuse. But they have been taking a look, over the past couple of weeks how does a WB67 work in this? And I saw that evidence tonight too, of some of the movements working for WB 67. Zach, I don't know if you want to explain specifically which movements, if you're looking for that, or...
No, I want to make sure you took those things into account.
Yes.
And the same with the traffic, I mean, our population hasn't grown, so I'm assuming that when you were looking at the traffic studies, you were looking at possible changes in traffic flow. I don't, and you added a percentage every year. I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm trying to understand where the argument comes from that you're not taking into account
Sure.
correctly.
And I apologize, I'm not a traffic engineer, however, when we decided to use the traffic counts that we used and added the 1% inflation rate, our traffic office was very comfortable doing that. They felt that was actually a very conservative number, given the growth that we're seeing in other traffic counts in the area. So I would like to say we've leaned on the side of being conservative with those numbers. And again, just to reiterate, we take into account, I mean, you can imagine all the different constraints that have to be taken into account, all the different users, the different user types, and how they're using it today, you know, versus how we see them using it tomorrow. I mean, we know what we're bringing forward is not the perfect solution. However, I really feel as though what we've done is definitely a marked improvement.
There have been opportunities all along the way here where you've met with Hy-Vee, and Hy-Vee has provided input at different stops along the way here, haven't they?
Yes, yeah, we've met with Hy-Vee on a few different occasions, and then I think they've been involved in the chamber. We've met with the Chamber of Commerce, breakfasts, and spoken at, I believe, 4 of those over the past 18 months. And we have a good dialogue going with Hy-Vee, and there is possibly more we can do too with them. We haven't seen their traffic forecast numbers. We've shared our forecast numbers with them, however, we have not seen them. I think they've just done them recently, but it might be helpful for them to share those with us as well. But I don't see how that would really change the numbers we use.
Mark, so if we find out that that phase of the design is not up to the standards, there are things you can do on the Hy-Vee side to help correct possible traffic flow issues that we may encounter that have not been forecasted?
Well, I think what needs to be figured out here is the design vehicle. You know, like I said, MnDOT designs for a WB 62. That's a 69-foot long vehicle. The WB 67 is typically about 73.5 feet long. The information brought forward to the council tonight is that MnDOT's trucks are, or excuse me, Hy-Vee's trucks are 67 feet long.
Please clarify that point. We're going to discuss that.
Sure.
Am I allowed to?
Come to the podium.
Phil Hoy again. I'm also not a traffic engineer, as you might tell. So the different lengths of the trucks, I believe WB 67 is the foot of the trailer itself. So if I misspoke, I apologize. We drive a WB 67 truck. So whatever length that truck is, if you said 70 feet, that's the length of truck that we drive. And while some of the intersections were looked at for WB 67, they weren't all looked at. So this intersection, like I said, over here was looked at, the one to get out to 14. I didn't see a plan that showed any other WB 67s, they were all 62s, on any other movement. I was told tonight that a WB 67 can make a westbound movement onto the service road. I've never seen that, no one's ever showed that to us, nor have we seen any other plan that shows a truck turning movement, like I said before, onto Gilmore, onto Oren, onto the West Service Drive, that WB 67 works.
Okay, thank you. Al?
Here, I have to apologize to my fellow council members. I got a little carried away or passionate, I guess, about this issue, and I'm quite frankly concerned that this is too serious of a decision to do nothing about it. And I hate the delay. I would not like another accident to happen at that intersection without the assurance that plans are in place, and by this time next year, a new intersection will be operative. And, you know, we always can't, just like traffic counts, we can't project traffic counts, and we can't project how changing the design of an area will save lives and save injuries and save property damage. That's where I'm coming from, and I support this project.
Well, I agree, and I think, we've got a project here, MnDOT's has it on their calendar, they're willing to go ahead with it. It's a huge improvement over what we have now, and I think it would be a shame to not approve it. Jerry?
The one thing I would like to point out, whoever votes against this, be cautious labeling them as somebody who does not care about safety. I think you can agree that everybody in this room cares about safety. That's why we're in this room. And many of the concerns I heard tonight were about safety. Those who don't, a lot of them that don't like the plan are about safety. So the common denominator of everybody here tonight is we agree on, something has to be done, and it's unsafe as it is, and we all want safety. So however the votes go tonight, just please be cautious, folks, and don't start labeling whoever was against it does not care about people's safety. That's ridiculous.
George?
This whole topic, as you know, we've all been for years. I don't have to spend time repeating that. Tonight, there leaves a lot of questions, a lot of concerns that still people would like to have answered, the businesses like to have answered. I think, Mayor, I think you said it best, that this is a plan better than what we had, but it still has flaws. And I think to make a serious investment into this, I believe that those flaws, whatever all they may be, I believe that those can be rectified. And we can go forth from there and have a good plan.
Any other comments? Well, hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails and 4-3 vote.
And I suggest we put this back on our agenda in another month or 2 weeks and see if there's been any resolution on community needs to bring it back for reconsideration.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay.
Second.
And a motion and a second to bring this topic back in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, hopefully some of these issues can be discussed, but particularly between Hy-Vee and
What
MnDOT.
specific issues, so that I know what we're talking about
Well,
here?
I'd like to hear from Hy-Vee to know that they've had some of their concerns addressed and that they feel that, having been addressed, that they're comfortable from their perspective to move forward on it. I'd love to see us, as I mentioned in the pre-council meeting, some addressing to the concern at Orange Street and what that might do in terms of, we have 2 traffic lights there now. It would not increase the number of traffic lights by moving it from Gilmore to Warren. So those are just a couple of the issues that I think can be put on the table and brought back and be reconsidered.
And it still fits within the requested timeline.
Correct.
It still falls within November.
I have a point of order. Do we have to then have another public hearing if we bring it back?
Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, since this resolution was
municipal
rejected, another
consent.
public hearing, Kyle Lake, MnDOT, another public hearing would be necessary.
Okay.
We'd welcome that.
Just question, does that also require a 30-day notice, or can we do 10-day?
Kyle Lake, MnDOT, no, state statute requires a 30-day notice for a public hearing.
How would that impact starting this project next
Then
March,
why
I
would-
guess?
It throws it off schedule, that's for sure. You know, I don't know if I can answer that specifically right now. Our schedule is very tight to be able to let it like that.
I'm not in favor of bringing it back in 2 weeks. I don't know how we can, why we would put a stoplight at Orin when there's not gonna be cross-traffic, unless you're asking them to redesign the entire street And I'm not sure, other than the truck length, what they can do to appease Hy-Vee, given that there's no more road to work with in front of their store. I'm trying to understand what you hope would happen. Paul, if you can explain more, I'm not.
I just think we can be creative enough to solve those problems, and putting enough heads on the table to deal specifically with those issues, and to consult with a major employer who has concerns, and to at least acknowledge those concerns and address them to the best that can be done.
I just thought that's what the last 3 years were, when
Well,
we had input in this.
yeah.
I thought that's what I thought happened already.
From the 2 letters we all got, those evidently have not been addressed.
Well, I'm all in favor of the motion if it leads to another opportunity here to get this project done next spring. And I'm hoping that that's still going to be the case. I think it's important for Hy-Vee's concerns to be addressed, but I'm really concerned with the response I'm hearing from MnDOT about this might derail the project next spring. But if there's an opportunity still for that, I'm going to vote for it. Any other comments?
Yes. Councilman Double's motion is similar to what many were asking this evening, and that was, had Councilman Alexander not made her motion, there was a possibility somebody could have made or would have made a motion to table, continue to work with MnDOT, and possibly look into an outside engineering firm to represent another set of eyes. That would have changed the time frame. This is about as good as we can get close to that request, and we're missing it by, if it's got to be 30 days, we're saying we're going to miss it. It had to be in the November window. If this thing dies for a week, I mean, that's really what we're looking at. If this project is going to be so inflexible that it would die over 7 days, then, well, I guess that's what we have to shoot for.
I think it's more than 7 days. I think it's a couple of weeks, but that
Well,
should.
no, 30 days. 30 days from when?
From 2 weeks from tonight, I would think. If I got that wrong?
Yes.
The public hearing would have to be 30 days. I mean, you can't go out and advertise the public hearing now.
30
You'd have
days
to wait
after
for-
advertisement.
So we could advertise it tomorrow?
No.
No, we'd have to wait for the next council meeting, and then 30 days after that.
No, just the time it takes to do a press release, I believe.
No, you have to do a public hearing notice, which is not a press release.
Right, a press release announcing the public hearing, 30 days from announcement of the public hearing to the date of it.
So we can't do it tomorrow because we can't get in the newspaper.
Well, I'm not saying the public hearing tomorrow, I'm just trying to figure out the time.
No, the announcement of it. I mean, the official
So
public.
30 days from when the announcement's made.
Yes.
Okay, but that wouldn't have been necessary if we had approved it.
So we're
tonight.
still looking at, it's just a matter of a few
weeks.
days.
Right. It's a short period of time, it would seem to me, for a project that's been going on this long. I would hope that this would kill it. Okay. Other comments, George?
Yeah, I know a vote has been taken, but is there any type of a way if that vote was to be reversed, we went from a rejection to a tabling? And just have a continuance of this hearing?
Public hearing's already been closed, so you don't have a public hearing. I don't know that I agree with MnDOT in terms of their assessment of having to have another public hearing. According to the statute that I'm reading, it says we have to have a public hearing upon notice, and that once we do that, we have 90 days to make a decision to approve or disapprove. So my view of it is you've held your public hearing. So if you want to come back in 2 weeks and decide what you want to do with this, I think you can do that. But that's my view.
Okay. I like that.
I do too.
Other comments before we vote? Al?
Hopefully, many roads will lead to a safe resolution of this issue.
Well, one last thing, they both know you know, MnDOT said tonight they gave forth what they thought was the best, yet 4 council members, I mean, it said it's not quite there. If any changes can be made, I mean, I know that unless I can see some changes, some of the changes that were talked about tonight, I'm not gonna change my vote just because 2 weeks went by. But I'm certainly open to listen. I want to vote for it, I just wanna see some changes. You know, I just don't wanna give, you know, I think it's close. But the people that had concerns tonight, I don't care if their concerns were, they could have brought them up 3 years ago, they've been bringing them up straight for 22 years. They're still important and legitimate concerns.
Michelle?
I don't think anyone's saying their concerns aren't legitimate, Jerry. What I want to know is if we don't agree, if the council can't come to an agreement because the changes they want are not doable, what happens to this intersection? Because those stoplights are going to be replaced. Is that all that would happen? You would just replace the stoplights, or you close
Well, I
Orange
think,
Street?
you know, if we couldn't get municipal consent
Yeah.
on a project like this, which, you know, we need consent when we're changing access, you know, when we're closing the Winona intersection, and we're getting right away. So, I mean, those are the things that we need municipal consent for. You know, I think the struggle has been, this issue's been around for over 20-some years, and we've had 3 major studies, and we're at, you know, the option that's gone through a lot of different iterations. Personally, I don't know what the answer is if this isn't it. You know, I think I think some of the issues that were raised by Heidi tonight, you know, we have not seen their traffic, you know, someone brought up the traffic issues. We haven't seen the numbers that they're talking about. We feel confident in the numbers that we use and analyze, you know, the capacity on here with. We have not seen anything from Heidi. You know, we could look at those. And I think probably the other issue I think that we take a closer look at and make sure that 67 vehicle that was part of the design vehicle, we would love to see how that could get out. But, you know, a lot of the other stuff really talks about some of the options that have been studied years before with major changes in, you know, really the whole configuration. So I think the things that we could look at from the comments I heard from Ivy would be, you know, how does the traffic relate? How do we expect it to look? And, you know, do we still feel confident with our numbers? And how do they relate to Ivy's numbers? Like I said, we haven't seen those yet. The other thing is you know, he was talking about concern about trucks getting in and out. We know they can get in, we've looked at that option. We can also look at the 67 out, we know we looked at the, 62, we thoroughly looked at that. So I mean, we could take a closer look at that. But other than that, I really don't know where else to go. It hasn't been looked at for the last 20+ years. And, you know, we've got a couple signals that are kind of on their last legs that I really think we have to address this coming summer. So, you know, I think our only options would be to go back to, you know, replacing the signals, and then the other big issue I think that's out there would be the safety at Warren, with looking at the RCI design that we proposed tonight to do that safety improvement at Warren. I just don't have any other ideas. We've looked at so many ideas over all these years, and it's just a tough thing to balance, as everyone's mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Moving on to the petitions, requests, and communications. Item 3.1, reappointment to the Heritage Preservation Commission of Preston Line. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Al. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 3.2, the Winona State University Student Senate request on pedestrian safety. And is Joshua Hanson present?
Joshua, you want to step to the podium, state your name and address?
My name is Joshua Hanson, 469 Harriet Street. I'm the Student Senate President this year. So first off, I'd like to say what a segue the conversations you all had on safety on Highway 61 is right into what I'm here for. So like I said, I'm Josh Hanson. I'm the Student Association President for Winona State University. I'm here on behalf of the 8,000 students that this community so graciously welcomes each and every year. So I want to start by saying we love this city, we love the beauty of this city, and we certainly love the generosity of the community members of this city that they show towards Winona State students. What I'm here doing is requesting a collaborative effort on behalf of students and Winona City Council members to increase pedestrian safety within Winona. So let me start off by saying that I'm in no way saying that this is inherently falling on the drivers of Winona. I'm acknowledging that there's a pedestrian aspect to safety involved in this as well. And we are certainly willing to work with the city, work with city council members to ensure that pedestrians know and are educated on ways to be safe. So I'll briefly give you a timeline of what spurred this. So this was actually something that was on my plate that I wanted to do this year. Throughout my time at Winona State, I've noticed some issues in crosswalk safety and just general pedestrian and bike safety. And coming into my term as Student Senate President, I kind of said, I want to find a way to make this safer. Unfortunately, the October 19th event that occurred on Broadway and Harriet really spurred the motion that I'm presenting tonight. I believe you all have a copy of the pedestrian safety resolution that was sent. It was a draft, however, it's no longer a draft. It was approved on our October 29th meeting unanimously. We tabled it for a week in order for students to see it, hear it, and get a feel for what they thought. We had tremendous student support for the motion. I heard from numerous students who thought this was one of the greatest things that Student Senate was doing for them. It was unfortunate that the event that occurred had to spur this, but everybody was very receptive. In addition, we've consulted with university administration and staff, and they've been very supportive of this motion as well. They think it's very thought out. They're again acknowledging that it's not something that students are just saying is on drivers of Winona or the city of Winona, but instead pedestrians as well. And we're all willing to work together to educate pedestrians on how to be safer. What I'm asking for from the city, in the motion, I mentioned the establishment of a working group. That is something that we are still looking to do. That working group consisting of students from Winona State, staff from Winona State, as well as city council members and city staff. We'd hope that this working group would work in collaboration, did they leave? With the Minnesota Department of Transportation to ensure some ways that we can really create safer pedestrian crossings in Winona. I mentioned, or in the resolution, it was mentioned that a variety of topics or solutions be looked at. And I just want to say that the working group would not be limited to those options. We'd be open to exploring a variety of options, but our main thing is that we really want this to be a collaborative effort. So what I'm really truly asking for is that first we work together to design education campaigns for pedestrians and drivers within Winona. So as that working group gets together, something that they would spearhead first because it'd be the quickest and most effective way, arguably, from the start to just design education campaigns. Next, I'd like to discover common sense solutions to address lighting concerns. According to the Federal Highway Administration Research and Technology, it's said that lighting and cautionary lighting at pedestrian crossings can decrease serious accidents at those crossings by up to 75%, which I think is a great number and something we can all easily get behind. And then thirdly, this group can certainly discuss possible funding ideas. I've already had students come up and say, you know, one thing that I always hear is that this is going to be an issue for funding, is finding ways to fund some of this increased lighting. We'd be open to finding multiple ways to fund this beyond just city funds, whether that be through fundraisers that students are already trying to conjure up ways to do this, or just working with the university to find ways to do this as well. Other than that, I'm hoping that we can establish this working group and get started as soon as possible. I think we all know that waiting any longer could result in another accident, especially with the nights coming so much sooner now. It's so hard for drivers to see pedestrians, and if we can just start to educate pedestrians, educate drivers, and then help drivers see those pedestrians with increased lighting or increased cautionary lighting, I think we're going to move in the right step. Are there any questions?
Well, I think it's an excellent idea. Personally, I really appreciate your taking the initiative here to step forward and request that the university and the city work together on this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I think it's a good idea. I think Councilman Iden too, I think she was
Yes, yes.
part of this,
Yeah.
moving this forward, so.
I'll move acceptance of the proposal.
I would second that.
A motion by Paul and seconded by Pam. I'm wondering if there, who from the council, I'm assuming Pam, you probably would like to be on this?
I would very much like to participate in the working group.
Is there anybody else that wishes to, or?
Well, I'll do it too.
Okay, so we have two council people, Paul and Pam, that would like to also be on this committee. Any other comments or questions, Al?
Well, just a comment, I'm sure it's going to be a two-way street, that your group will be aware of, and maybe you are already, of the steps the city is already taking to improve pedestrian safety, especially along the Broadway corridor. And the city is looking at additional or improvements in the light along the well-traveled areas. You've got to understand too, as you said before, that on Main Street, it's Highway 43, so MnDOT has a lot to do with what happens there. But as far as what the city can do, the group is a great place to do that.
Correct.
Exchange information both ways.
Yeah, and we are aware of some of the proposed changes and are open, or very open to those. We think those are great steps forward. However, it's one of those things that we know that there's always more that we can do as a group, and if we get together and collaborate, get a lot of minds together, I think we'll be extremely effective.
And if you're interested in a little bit of the arcane, you might want to go to your newspaper project website and do a little research on pedestrian safety, because the city has been dealing with pedestrian safety, at least when I did that, came up with articles that date from the Safety Council years of the 1950s. So it's a problem that we've had, but I'm glad to see the group is moving forward, and I'm glad that our two council representatives will be joining you and other people to do this.
Yeah, we certainly look forward to working with anybody that wants to be involved. I think it's going to be a great group, and I hope we come up with some really great ideas.
Could we get an update on the flashing pedestrian lights and the speed signal, or whatever you call it?
Mayor and Council, there's a huge lead time on these things. They're anywhere from 30 to 60 days out. I ordered them more than a month ago, and I'm expecting them in the next 20 some odd days. Then we'll have to install them. So hopefully late November they come in.
What about the movable speed sign?
Same order.
Okay.
Well, that's good news. That's not bad.
Okay, thank you.
Could we also have an update perhaps on increasing the lighting on Broadway? I understood that was being looked at.
Most intersections in town currently are 100-watt high-pressure sodium lights on Broadway, with one in each intersection. On Broadway, currently there's two 150-watt high-pressure sodium lights. we have the ability to increase those that are on the Excel lights to up to 250 if we want. So we could increase those on Main, we could increase those on Broadway, all those. It would increase our monthly charge, but there is no construction cost for doing that. So it is a definite possibility to increase the lighting on all of those.
What do you need to move forward on that?
Yeah,
Council direction.
well, can we first get the estimated cost from Excel or whatever they're gonna think? it
Yeah,
would
I
be?
don't have the monthly, I have the monthly cost in my office, but I don't have them here with me. It'd be a monthly cost to do it, but I can bring that back to next council.
Thank you.
Good.
I think that's our decision.
Okay. Well, we have a motion. Any other comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Do I still have an opportunity, just really quickly, I think, just in the interest of all the city council members here, if you're interested in hearing an update from, regarding the student that was hit by the car, I do have the dean of students here who is willing to give that update.
All right, we'd like to hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Karen Johnson. I'm the Dean of Students at Winona State University. And even though the parents of 8,000 students every year ask me to keep their children safe, I can't do it all myself. And that's why I'm so happy that Student Senate is working towards this. They've taken full responsibility of pedestrian safety, and we want to continue to work on that. But I think it's important to put a name with a face. So I want to just tell you briefly about Brittany Nelson, the student who was hit by the car. She had multiple skull fractures, damage to her spine, bleeding on the brain, etc. She has recently been moved from the Trauma and Neurological Center at Gunderson to a rehabilitation unit closer to home. She's starting to be awake for almost 2 hours a day, almost feeding herself. But she has a long road to go. And it's a sad story, but I don't want to dramatize too much, but I want to stress the importance of these individuals and human beings who come to Winona, and their family sends them here knowing what a safe place we are and a safe campus. So thank you for the opportunity to update on that.
Thank you, Karen. Next item.
Item 3.3 is a request for handicap parking stall at 511 East Sanborn.
Move to approve the attached ordinance.
I'd second that.
Michelle, seconded by Pam. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Item 3.4 is a license agreement for the Boats and Bluegrass event in September of 2016.
Move to approve the license agreement.
I have to give it to Michelle, second to Pam.
And the fast vendors are here if you have questions.
Any questions for Tom and Julie? Is it on opening of duck hunting next year?
Usually, Mayor, Member, Council, I think it usually falls on that weekend.
Okay. I had one call this year, as you know, about access to the landing. Is that available, or is that excluded?
Yeah, technically, I think we asked for the landing to be closed, but we've always allowed hunters to go in and access it. The only issue becomes parking, because the parking's full over the weekend. We tend to get day guests that come in for the day, so the parking, at 4 or 5 in the morning when the duck hunters are usually going out is probably the most open of any time over the weekend, so never really had any issues, so.
Okay. Just had to ask.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sounds like they had some good luck last weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of shooting, huh? That doesn't necessarily mean good luck, though. Any other questions or concerns? George?
Yeah, I know that's really a great festival. You did a good job with that, or do a good job with that, so.
Thanks. Yeah, we're looking forward to our 12th year next year, so.
I've never seen so many people in my entire life last year. Very good.
How did you get in?
Huh?
How did you get in? You can't even get tickets. They're exclusive.
I was duck hunting.
Oh, for goodness sake. So you're saying I have to take up shooting?
I'm the one that called the mayor.
Oh, got it.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Under new business, item 5.1 is to approve the transit grant for marketing. This is a no local match grant for about $8,000 to do advertising and one publicity event.
I move to adopt the following resolution.
I would second that.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Pam again. Any
I
discussion?
have a question.
Yeah.
Who decides where the marketing dollars are spent?
The city clerk.
Okay. Okay, just curious.
I guess you got your
You
answer.
got your answer, yeah. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Item 7.1 is council concerns.
We'll start down there with Al this time.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item, just a reminder that alternate side parking starts November 15th. That's all I have.
Very nice.
A couple of things. Most importantly, it would be on 11 November, it's for Veterans Day, just as we've had, and I can't recall how many years, it's been over 20, I believe, for the 24-hour Veterans Vigil. So if anybody is interested in standing any of those watches, you can certainly go down to, there's watch lists at both the Legion and the VFW. Or if you don't sign up, you can certainly go down. It's going out for the full 24 hours, and it's really, really something. So definitely get involved in that. The other, all of us have been getting a lot of phone calls regarding a lot of the successful construction that's going on downtown, which is creating, like any success, it's going to create a lot of traffic and a lot of parking issues. On the good side, it's been a long time since we've had parking issues downtown. Now it's becoming certainly a topic of discussion. Your calls are being listened to, and we are having some conversations internally about what really can we do. And things up to and including a potential moratorium, which may not even be legal at this point. It seems as if all the properties have already been purchased, or it seems that way. But your concerns have been listened to, and we're having some discussions. So if there's anything that needs to more on that, it may come up in future council meetings. Thank you.
Michelle? Paul?
About a year ago, the council visited the issues of sign pollution in our parks, and we seem to have solved that, corrected the problem. However, we're now seeing a blight of political yard signs. And so I checked our chapter 43, which happens to be our statute on signs, and it defines political signs as anything voting or supporting issues or candidates. And I would remind everybody that all signs need to be removed within 10 days after the election, preferably in even-numbered years, but since the calendar shows November the 3rd, which is tomorrow, as an election day, that those signs may need to be removed within 10 days.
Pam?
Nothing.
Okay, George?
Is there any type of a way we could the city pass some kind of an ordinance requiring the length of time campaign signs can be displayed?
That's already in law.
State statute.
46 days.
Okay. I'm just wondering, do we have to abide by this? Or can we do it? To me, it would be 10 days before the election, down by noon the next day. That would be my dream.
State statute.
It's all governed by state statute.
Okay.
Damn government.
Okay. Al, there was no need to apologize. You do a good job. We got to have that feistiness in us sometimes. So.
Every once in a while.
So, did a very good job. I would just like to simply acknowledge the passing of one of our friends, a longtime Winona resident, Pete Charetke, who passed away on October 20th. Pete, who for many, many years was involved in the Elks Club, went through the officer ranks, always did things for the Elks Club. He proudly served our country in the Navy, and he was very, very proud of it and a very, very honorable veteran. Pete then became disabled and he would always be traveling around, moving around in his wheelchair. And during his times of immobileness, Pete always had the Elks Club in his heart, the veterans in his heart, his family in his heart, his community in his heart. I visited with him sometimes 2-3 times a week. He would go by my house in his wheelchair, and we'd always chat on many issues. So, to his wife Pam and their daughters, condolences on this very fine gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under the consent agenda, there are 7 items. The approval of the minutes from October 19th, the final adoption of an ordinance to increase liquor fees for 2016, to place a stop sign at Carmona and King, to prohibit parking on Main Street at the railroad, to establish no parking passenger loading on Viola Street, and to install 3-way stop at Wabasha Street and Jury Court, and 1 claim against the city by Cindy Ferguson for bee stings to her dog.
I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Al, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mayor, I move we adjourn. We only had 8 items tonight, but
Second.
Motion by George, seconded by Michelle and Pam. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.